All right, everybody. Okay, we're going to get started. So I want to say thank you to everybody that showed up tonight. This is a really special evening for me, primarily because I have the privilege to introduce you to somebody that I love and admire, and I've been fortunate to know. It's been like about a year and a half or two, almost 2 years now, I think, Siobhan. But the more I got to know Siobhan and the cause and what they were doing, the more passionate I became about her cause, which then in turn became a global cause, which in turn should be your cause as well, considering what we've gone through over the last few years. So before I get started, I just want to say thank you to everybody that's here. You have to bear with me because I'm also managing and co-hosting, so I'm doing all the back end stuff at the same time. So if I look like I'm a little distracted, it's because I'm actually organizing and facilitating and hosting at the same time. So on that note, I just want to make sure that you guys are aware that we only have about a limited amount of time this evening, but the whole evening is really about getting to know the mission behind Growing to Give. Now, also, just to give you an understanding for those that I haven't seen in a while, hey Anne, it's been a while. I want to show you a little bit, share with you what I've been working on and still in the progress of working on, just so that you have an idea of how you can maybe help contribute in the future as well. So for those who don't know me, my name is Jillian Murray. I'm a business development advisor. I've been working in a lot of different projects over the last few years, and primarily before that, I was working in retail and virtual sales as a field development and sales trainer. I have also taken on the initiative of support of helping Siobhan Shaw with Growing to Give as the Chief Strategy Officer. So in my downtime, I help support their mission and giving them some advice when it comes to strategy and marketing. I do know there's a few of you here that I've worked with in the past, and a few of you here that are coming on board to watch this today so they can learn a little bit about the initiative that I've been kind of teasing about over the last few months. So tonight, just to set you a little bit of set the stage for you, I want to just go through how I met Siobhan and how I fell in love with her cause, and in turn, knowing how I like to give and give back to society as a whole, I resonated completely when she asked me if I could support her on this unbelievable cause that she does. And then you'll see a picture behind me. This is a picture of a crop circle. That's not just artistic. It has a cause. It's absolutely amazing when you actually understand the story of it. And that's what we want to share tonight with you guys, okay? So first of all, before we get into introductions, does everybody understand what this food security means? Does everybody know what that means?
Yep.
Sherry, yes?
Yes.
Yeah.
What is your understanding of what security means?
Who are you asking?
Well, Sherry, I thought you said.
Okay.
Sherry, it's okay.
It means that there are many people who are having a very difficult time just feeding themselves. As a community, to have outlets where we can provide food for friends, neighbors, organizations, that takes the stress off of right now regular people and people that are low income, and people are just trying to make ends meet, and everyone, they can't afford food. It's too expensive right now with the inflation. So food security is a way to be able to grow food, share food, enjoy food.
Siobhan, what do you think about that? Is that a great segue to some important
Yes,
facts?
that's wonderful. Sherry, would you like to work with Growing to Give? That was amazing.
I just might.
Okay,
I
great.
do have a degree in nutrition, so I just might.
Well, we just created a new nutrition team, and they're doing a series of webinars for our community garden initiative. So come on in. It's all volunteer.
Yes, and on that note, actually, you shared with me today, Siobhan, it ties very much into what you said, Sherry, about a great fact that you wanted to let me know about. Like, what was that little snippet that you shared with me? Is eye-opening for me.
690 million people go to bed hungry. That's more than twice the population of the United States. So just think about your entire town not having food on their dinner table tonight, and then think about all the other towns around you and throughout North America, and you probably get an idea of how big this problem is. And I actually think that's an underrated number. I don't actually believe that they can really tag that specific number. There's a lot of people that you wouldn't know are going hungry tonight. So food security is a big issue.
Yeah. So I'm glad that you guys are here tonight, because we're hoping that you can help us. At the end, we'll explain how you can take part in this initiative, because it is something, just before I introduce who Siobhan is, and I want to share a little story about my experience when I moved to the island in the Caribbean, and during the COVID. And I know Siobhan was asking me about, for her teammates, some stories of examples of where food security hit you hard. And unfortunately, we all experienced some harsh times during COVID. And having come from an environment, in Canada, where we just there's a grocery store on every corner, there was an abundance of different types of foods. I never really had to do without. It was just something that was easy. And then during COVID, what really struck me was when we're on a small island and we relied on French mainland, which is at the other side of the world, to distribute my side of the island all our food. So when COVID happened, we were very limited and almost rationed to the point where we had very limited access to food. Fortunately, I'm a little bit of a hoarder, and I do tend to keep supplements on hand, so I make sure my maintenance basic stuffs are in place. But what it was a big wake up call, knowing that the island did not have an infrastructure in place, did not have enough community gardens, did not have enough agricultural space available on that small island to feed this population. And it was getting growingly prevalent about the need to figure out a solution. So when Siobhan came to me and I learned a little bit about the Growing to Give initiative and what they've been doing already in the Feed the Island campaigns, I'm like, wow, this could be such exponentially fabulous, because I then would not only be able to grow my own food, but my community could be self-sustaining, and I'm in an environment where we have such small space that we are able to offer a sustainable solution and grow more food in such a small space. That's what just blew my mind. So we're going to show a quick presentation later on, but I first of all want to say thanks again to Siobhan for being here, and thank you for sharing your passion. And for those who don't know who she is, she's been not only turned into a very close and fast friend, but she's also the CEO and co-founder, along with her husband John, who's another amazing guy, for Growing to Give. And they have quite a few other subsidiary companies, but I'd like Siobhan just to introduce who you are and a little bit more about Growing to Give and what you've been doing over the last couple of years. Okay. Oh, there you are.
Jillian. I still don't have the technology down.
That's okay.
Thank you for the great introduction, and thank you for sharing your story about food insecurity, because that actually surprised me. It didn't surprise me, but it surprised me that you went through food insecurity on the islands. I knew that people were, but when it's somebody that it's shocking, because people just don't share that kind of information readily. Growing to Give is based in Washington State. I am the co-founder, along with my husband and a friend of ours. And we're over 3 years old. We're a 501c3, and we're all volunteer managed. The entire team is volunteer. And there's a big story around how we started, and I'll get to that in a little bit. But our mission is basically born of insight and innovation to address water scarcity and food insecurity by providing sustainable farming and gardening systems and methods for people that are living in climate vulnerable and low income regions. Because we ultimately want to be able to be part of the solution. We want to free people from hunger. And we feel that everybody deserves to live in a healthy, resilient, and thriving community. Absolutely.
Okay. All right. So on that note, what I'd like to do, based on the timing, is we'll do the little presentation, Siobhan, from gives you a little bit of an overview of the magnitude of what she has done, but we're going to be focusing primarily on the community gardens aspect tonight. Okay, but there are other initiatives which are very large, but the one that can hit us personally is the community garden. So just bear with me as I get this set up for you. Okay, 1 second. So as I'm getting organized, is there any feedback or questions that you want to or questions you have for Siobhan right now? Nope.
I have a question for everybody.
All right. Go ahead.
Who felt food insecure when the pandemic hit? Were you running to the grocery store to stock up? Does anybody have a story that they'd like to share?
Sure.
Yep.
Okay. Anne?
Sure. We have a community that I'm part of, the Lived Experience Roundtable. And one of our initiatives is to provide people in our community that have limited resources for food to find ways to be creative with what we can find them. And we're lucky enough that we've got some community resources that actually provide more than just food, but clothing. And one of our food banks is actually set up just like a grocery store. You take your little cart and you take what you need instead of giving them a basket of stuff. And that seems to minimize the waste. And but I'll tell you, one of the hardest things for our family is we have diabetes and lactose intolerant, and the prices of those foods went nuts. And where I was able to show people about coupons and using my points and shoppers and all this other stuff, I was not able to get the usual stuff that I got. And so we ended up doing without a lot of stuff because it was just not affordable. And I have to say, right now, a 2-liter of milk that I used to get for $4.99 every Saturday on sale, I can't get for under $6.50 now.
Wow.
So it doesn't seem to be getting any better, but it's like a puzzle. You got to think, okay, well, here's what I absolutely have to buy, and well, if this is on sale, I'll get it. But it's almost like we do this in our Facebook group. We plan a week's worth of meals based on what's on sale, and then we post that in our group. And if you've got 4 people or 10, you just multiply. But knowing that we take some of the hard thing out of looking through flyers and finding the cheapest food out there, this has been a big success for all of us. But unfortunately, you know, those with diabetes and celiac, and you know, those, there really isn't a path for it. You're stuck with a certain type of food menu, and it's hard to deviate from that. So that's pretty much been the ups and downs here.
Well, you're doing an amazing thing for your community just by helping them figure out where the sales are and what to do, like what to buy for that week. That's amazing. Thank you for serving your community. In one or two words, how does this make you feel?
Sad.
Yeah.
And I guess thankful that I was doing this kind of stuff before COVID, and there was just more of a desperation need for it during COVID.
Absolutely.
And even now.
Yeah, absolutely. You can imagine.
Yeah.
Every one of us can imagine if we haven't been impacted ourselves. I have, Jillian has, Anne has, and I'd love to hear everybody else's story as we move on. But can you imagine what if even half of us on this call have been impacted by food security or insecurity? How many other people around the world do we not even think about or know about are dealing with this right now? It's dinner time where I am, and who doesn't have food on their table tonight for their children, for their family?
Yeah.
So Jillian has a presentation up. It's a presentation I use to explain to foundations that are offering grants and to organizations that have invited us to speak, to share with you a little bit about what Growing to Give is about and why we're unleashing the power of resilient agriculture to impact the global food security situation. And you can go to the next one. There you go. I mentioned earlier there was 690 million people that go to bed hungry in the world every night. And we'll just go back a couple of slides, but I think it's more than that. I feel it's more than that. I think there's a lot of people that just don't say they're not getting any food today. They're not registered with a food bank or some NGO or wherever they get all their stats. So basically, the story began when my husband, John, had faced terminal cancer. He had stage 4 cancer, and it just turned our world upside down. And he faced the white light phenomenon. So if you don't believe it, you can ask John, and he will tell you it is true. This near-death experience is quite an experience. But he was sent back to the flow of life. That's how he can explain it. And he didn't know why, and he decided to find out. So having survived the worst thing that he probably faced in his entire life, he went on a quest to find out why. And so he started traveling, and he had no idea where it would take him. But he went to Australia, and as he was there visiting and getting to know the area, he started to see headlines in the newspaper about farmers committing suicide. And it wasn't just one headline. It was, headline after headline after headline. This was a problem. And it was because the weather patterns had changed. The rain belt had shifted, basically out of the breadbasket of Australia. And so generational farms were going bankrupt. They didn't have the water to, irrigate their crops because they relied on rainwater mostly. And if you're in farming at all, the cost of irrigation to put it in. So then another, and he said, this isn't right. And then he found out also that because of the drought in Australia, people used to have flourishing backyard gardens and they weren't. There was water restrictions. And this was many, many years before it came to North America. And I live in the West, and so we've all felt the problems that have come from the droughts and the wildfires. And so then he ended up in the Caribbean, and he realized that there was all these tankers of water coming into the port and to buoy up the tourists' water supply. But the people that lived there had to use catchment systems. So that's rain catchment systems just for their water and, their household water and for their gardens. And so he came home and he just started inventing. People do that all the time. So I thought he was off his rocker. He was cutting holes in pots, and he would be very excited about these things that he was thinking of. But long story short, he actually ended up inventing systems, irrigation systems, growing systems like you see behind Jillian's head and my head. And this system right in front of you, which is called the tomato volcano. And he has them all patented, and he was all ready to send them, go to retail. That would sort of be the next step. And he looked at me and he said, this is a gift I've been given, and I think that it's for the greater good. He said, how can we give this away? And I thought that was very noble of him, but I proceeded to tell him his name was not Bill and my name was not Melinda, and we weren't independently wealthy. So I don't know how we're going to do this. A great idea, and that would be really fun to give it away, but how are we going to do this? So the idea of Growing to Give came, and very quickly we got our 501c3. We'd already started growing at a church that had a community garden. So they had acres, like 28 acres, and they would split it into little plots for different community groups. So they invited us to come and show them what we could do with our spirals and our tomato volcanoes. And so we did, and then the pandemic hit, and we ended up staying there for 3 years. We grew 100,000 pounds of food for the food banks. It all went to the food banks. And we used spiral technology. We used low water use irrigation that John had created or designed and patented. And then as we were doing this, we also found out there was a million other things that it did as well. So it increased the crop yield, it targeted the nutrient delivery, it reduced the amount of fertilizer. And then I think if you can remember the headlines in the last year or so, that fertilizer prices are out of this world. Farmers can't afford to get fertilizer for their crops. My favorite part was there was very minimal weeding. I used a broom to sweep up and I would go through these these pictures are quarter acre spirals. And the one at the top is Roma tomatoes. Our first year with that spiral, we grew over 11,000 pounds of Roma tomatoes. It was all given to the community. And we would have done more if we hadn't had a September 15th frost. The next year, it was more like 18,000 pounds of tomatoes came off that because the frost was later. And then in the forefront, the crop circle is bell peppers. And that was an amazing, they're both amazing spirals, amazing crops, but the peppers were amazing. So you can see the Roma tomatoes here. This is John and a good friend of ours and the guys from one of the local food banks filling up that truck. So you can see how big that truck is. It was full. It had peppers and tomatoes and I think that day we were also picking all the pumpkins and all the squash. So Lake Country Food Bank went home with a tremendous amount of food for the community that they look after. And so here we are. The pandemic is over. And this is the Rotary Club. They came out and this is what they picked. This is bell peppers. John's always he likes, doesn't want to just get green bell peppers. He likes to do things differently. So these are purple bell peppers. They were amazing. They went from green to purple to red. And this is Gavin, and he's putting, wow, that's probably 2,000 pounds or something like that of bell peppers. And I think the Rotary Club picked about 6,000 pounds. So basically, fast forward, and I said to John, I said, I don't know what to do now, but we need to move on and we need to grow. We need to find a way to get these systems into people's hands, like just, we can do a great job just growing for one community, but what we have, if we can get it into the hands of everybody, we're going to make a huge impact. So I had this great idea to go to LinkedIn and see if I could find some people to help me write grants, because I didn't have any idea how to write a grant for a nonprofit. And lo and behold, 60 volunteers later, I found a grant writing team, a marketing team, a chief strategist, who happens to be sitting right here with me, Jillian. I found operations experts. I found there's even a gentleman here who's a geospatial engineer, so and nonprofit administrators, and all kinds of people. We have people from the Caribbean, from Turkey, from South Africa. We have a chapter in South Africa. We have a director of the Caribbean she's now in charge of running the Caribbean and whatever we end up doing there, projects. We have a legal team who are Fortune 500 lawyers that have decided to share their time with us. We have engineers, social media experts. It just blew my mind how many people caught our vision, and they just listened to the story. They just listened to, I think Jillian probably knows that initial story of how, that I just relayed to you guys. So it's the most amazing team, the momentum of the team. And it's harnessing the power of love to feed people and make a profound change in their lives. But it also makes a profound change in our lives. It has shifted my attitude. And those of you who know me, I used to do a show called The Attitude Shift. But I grew up on a farm, and there is nothing like growing food and growing food for people, because it is a movement of generosity and empowerment through the innovation of agriculture. We wouldn't be able to grow this much food in this small a space without this gift of invention that was given to John after he was sent back into the flow of life. And I'm here to support him beyond any, we just, everything could end for us tomorrow, but we will leave this as a legacy. And I know that the younger generation who's part of our team, they will end up running this and taking over as we move on to the next great adventure.
So Siobhan, that was great. And maybe just you guys can see a little snippet into why this has become another passion of mine. The idea of being able to feed the world. We all talk about it. We all discuss it. We all live it to some degree. But what if you could help your community feed itself? I mean, I've seen this in, like, living in the Caribbean. I have seen small communities that have stepped forward and helped each other out during a time of need. And it's because they are their mindset is to be in that position where they're self-sustaining, especially when they've gone through hurricanes and they've gone through trauma. So, but there's just an option for local communities all over the world to set up community gardens. All we need is somebody to help us champion that and introduce us to people with land that's willing to donate, people that might be willing to help this initiative. You know, Siobhan's already got grant working going. Like you said, there's a huge back team of people, and I've never seen anybody work so hard in all my life than Siobhan. She's always online. She's always dedicated. She's like writing like a storm. When somebody can't show up, she's doing like 500 jobs because her mission is to feed the world. And the amount of growth, I just want to share this because coming from a business background, but the amount of growth that's happened over the last few months and the awareness that's happened is unbelievable. So if you guys want to get involved in any way, shape, or form, all you have to do is, you know, follow Siobhan on LinkedIn, and I will make sure that I share the link inside the chat box before we leave tonight. Same thing, but if you go to growingtogive.org, there's a website there that explains all the initiatives that they have, but they have other initiatives too. Like there's huge initiatives like the Feed the Island campaign, and then there's the, you know, the forestry, some sustainability programs that she has. Like there's like, I can't even, we'd have to take like a whole day to explain all the programs that she's doing. But right now, how can we, a small little community that we have right now, how can we help Growing to Give? I'm showing up and doing whatever I can by just getting the word out. I mean, I wish I could do more. And it lines perfectly with what the community that I'm building right now, which is called the Feel Good, Share Good. And I want to align Growing to Give as being part of my Do Good campaign. So the do good in that whole flow of feeling good, if you feel good, you know what, getting access to nutrients is a big part of that. You'll share good. And this is me sharing good right now. I'm taking the time to share Siobhan and her mission and the global mission on helping feed those that need it. And, you know, this is my way of giving back for everything that I've been given. So I just want to say thanks to everybody. And anybody have any questions on how or anybody have any interest? I loved Anne's story. It's unfortunately sad, but true. But, you know, potentially there could be an option of a community garden being placed in Brampton. You know, there could be one in Cornwall. There's like, this is not just limited to the islands. This could be in any community throughout the world. And like she said, she was naming Africa, Uganda. You know, she comes from BC. So that community garden you saw was from BC. Am I correct, or was that somewhere else? Yeah.
Yep. Right behind. This is Kelowna, BC. Right behind our heads. This is right down. You know, just if you know Kelowna at all, it's not too far from the big shopping mall, the Orchard Park shopping mall. There's 28 acres that was bequeathed to, I believe it's the Baptist church. But this couple had this acreage in, I think when they probably got it, there wasn't so much development around them, but they wanted to see it be turned into something for the community, to feed the community. And we had a great 3 years there, and we made a lot of friends. We had an amazing group of volunteers. They love to come to the spirals and work the spirals. And I actually just saw one of the pastor's wife just recently on our Growing to Give page. She said something to, I'm paraphrasing, I love the crop circles. And that was, you know, 2 years after we've left that property. She's still thinking about the crop circles because they flourish. It makes you feel good to work in them. It becomes a community because they're also, because of the circle energy to it, I would call it. There would be people, there was a lot of guys that would come from the addiction houses and from different organizations, and they would come and work alongside myself and John and other volunteers, and we got to know each other. We got to, some of some of these guys, their stories would have just shocked you, but just being able to spend time in the spirals with these healthy plants, the camaraderie between the volunteers. I remember one gentleman said, he said, you know, my thoughts are usually quite dark, and when I come here, it lightens me up. And he said, I thank you so much for creating this space, because it was a safe space, but you're also doing good works. You're doing good. So yeah, great name, Jillian, by the way.
Thank you.